Hey guys, so I think this is actually going to be my last video. Um, Writing quadratic equations from solutions is the last video in this unit, or last lesson, I guess, in this unit, and then you'll have your study guide and test. So you won't have to watch any more videos from me, and quadratic equations will be done for you. So that'll be exciting. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Um, this really just kind of brings everything with factoring into play. You've got to do a little bit of factoring, plus you have to kind of go backwards with it. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at this graph, and the actual equation is the function x squared plus 2x minus 3. That's what this graph is. So we're going to use use this graph to figure out what are the zeros. So what are those intercepts? Where does it cross that x-axis? So it crosses the x-axis right here and right here. So that would be at -3 and at +1. Okay, so those are your two zeros of that graph, or of that function on the graph. So now what we're going to do, we're going to look at the original equation, this one right here. And what are the factors? So if we were to factor that out, there's not a greatest common factor, so we're going to have to go ahead and factor. So what are those factors in sum? So factors of -3 that get us to +2. So that would be x. Let's see, the only factors of 3 are 3 and 1. But so we've got 3 and then x and then 1. So we have to just come up with our signs. So that would be one has to be negative and one has to be a positive because it's -3. But to get us to +2, that would be +3 and -1 because 3 minus 1 is +2. 3 times -1 is -3. So if we look at those factors, the zeros, so we've got +3 and -1. Sorry, I should have done the whole thing. +3 and -1. It's just opposite signs. So if we were to set each one of these equal to 0, so x plus 3 equals 0, and then x minus 1 equals 0, if we were to solve that out, x equals -3 plus 1, and x equals 1. Those are our factors up here, -3 and positive, or our zeros, excuse me. Does that make sense? So what I'm trying to say here is when you look at the graph, those are going to be those zeros or the x-intercepts where it crosses that x-axis. Those two numbers, those are going to go inside of your parentheses. Okay, those are, and then if you were to FOIL it out, remember foiling? If you were to FOIL that out and multiply everything together, you're going to get back to this equation right here. Okay, you just change the signs of those zeros when you put them inside of the parentheses. Just remember that. Change those signs. Okay. Um, and then C, multiply the linear factor. Oh, well, I should have read ahead to C. If we were to, let's go ahead. What was that? X plus 3 and then X minus 1. Oops, got the X. X minus 1. If we were to multiply these out, use blue. So that would be x times x is x squared. We're foiling. First outer. X times -1 is -x. And then your inner. So 3 times x, that's plus 3x. And then 3 times -1 is -3. Combine our like terms. That is x squared plus 2x minus 3, which is this equation right here up top. Okay, so you can always FOIL it out to make sure that you did it right. Okay, so for this, what we're going to do is first thing is write the, I guess, the zeros. I'm going to keep the zeros. Or you can also write solutions if that makes more sense to you. But the zeros, that's what we're talking about. Write those zeros as equations. So x equals, in our original one, -3. And then x equals positive 1. Those are our zeros. We're going to write that as x equals. That's where it crosses the x-axis, okay? And then set those equations equal to 0. Let's draw my line so it looks like a 0. So we're going to set those now equal to 0. So we have to change those signs. X plus 3 equals 0, and then x minus 1 equals 0. Act like we're factoring it. We've got them in our factors. And now write those equations as factors. So some of you might be able just to skip that step number 2 and just go ahead and write them as factors. Multiply those factors and simplify. And now you have written an equation from just looking at the graph. Easy peasy, right? Okay. So we're going to go ahead and do some examples. So the first one, we've got our solutions or zeros. X equals -5 and x equals 8. So we're just going to write this as x, not x at all, x plus 5, because we're changing those signs, and then x minus 8. And now we're just going to FOIL it out to get our solution. So x times x, our first, x squared. X times -8 is -8x. And then 5 times x plus 5x. And 5 times -8 is -40. And simplify down. So x squared -8x plus 5x is -3x. And then minus 40. And that's our equation. I want y'all to put me on pause and try to do number 2 on your own. And then I'll come back at the end and give you the answer. Okay, try this one on your own. All right, so now we're going to do number 3. Number 3 looks scary because it's got 2 on it, but don't let it scare you. All right, so we've got our 2 functions. We've got our f of x function and our g of x function. First thing I want you to do is just kind of look at it when you've got something like this. Just kind of look at it and see maybe what the similarities are, what the differences are. Differences, obviously, one goes upside down, one goes right side up. So remember the upside down frown? That's going to be a negative. It's going to be a negative function. That leading coefficient is going to be negative, or that a factor. The other one, f of x, that is right side up. So that is a positive leading coefficient. Okay. So next I'm going to see, it looks like the x-intercepts or the zeros are the exact same for both of them. Looks like it's right here at -5 and then -1. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see, but -5 and -1. So what do you notice about the zeros? They're the same. They are the same. And they are x equals -5, x equals -1. Okay, so now we need to factor f of x and g of x. So I'm just going to go ahead and I've got x plus 5. And then I've got x plus 1. Yeah, because they're both negative, so I need to make them both positive. Okay, and then I'm just going to FOIL this out. So I've got x squared plus x plus 5x plus 5. So that would be x squared plus 6x plus 5. All right, I got my f of x. I got my positive one. But now we've got a negative. What's this mean? Okay, so whenever you have this negative, or whenever you get to something like this and you're like, I don't know what to do with it. So, what I want you, okay, so I don't like this one because it really doesn't, what's the word? Kind of teach you how to do, or it kind of back up. Okay. Whenever you're reading a question like this, ask or see what it's wanting you to do. This is saying factor. You know what I did? I just kind of didn't read it. So that's my fault right there. And you all know I will always admit my mistakes. I guess I need to drink more coffee. And so I didn't factor it first. All I did was I put those solutions in and then I just folded it back out. So we did get to the original one, but that was f of x. Okay, so that was our f of x function. Now let's do our g of x function. Let's factor that one out. So I'm looking at the g of x function, which is this one right here. And to factor that one, I can look at that and see that there is a greatest common factor, or GCF. Greatest common factor that I can pull out is -2, because -2 will go into all of those. So I'm going to say -2. And then if I divide -2x squared divided by -2, it's going to be an x squared right there. And then -12x divided by -2, that is plus 6x. And then -10 divided by -2, that is plus 5. Okay. Now that we've done that, I want you to look what we just did, what we wrote. This one right here. So we've written our f of x function by bringing out that greatest common factor. And now we can just rewrite all of this mess right here. So it's just x plus 5 and then x plus 1. And then on the outside, we've got our -2 right here because we need that leading coefficient when we factor it out or simplify. When we put it in our standard form, we need that leading coefficient to be negative because it is an upside down number. Or upside down parabola. So if we were to factor that out, I don't have any room left. If you were to factor x plus 5 and x plus 1, actually, let me just go ahead and do it. If I'm just going to rewrite, pretend like we fold it, and it's going to be x squared plus 6x plus 5. And then we have to multiply everything by -2. So -2 times x squared is -2x squared. -2 times 6x is -12x. Then -2 times 5 is -10. So that gets us back to our original one. Okay, so that's why we need to see if there is a greatest common factor that we can pull out. And this will both have factors of x plus 5 and x plus 1. And we kind of talked about, or I've kind of talked about why they have different equations, but the exact same factors and the exact same zeros. They're different just because one has that leading coefficient that is negative. That's the only thing. Okay. All right. So this next one, since it's math, we love a good random formula with more random numbers. Okay. So we've got a different form now. Well, it's not really a different form, or a different equation. But this new equation is y equals a, that leading coefficient, and then x minus r, and then x minus s. Whoops. Okay, r and s, those are the zeros. So in our previous, when we were working out these problems up here, let's see, this number, I got too many colors going on here. Maybe I'll do, I don't know, this one. So that, if you can see where those are our R and our S. And then that -2 in the front, that's the A. That is that constant. That is that leading coefficient once it's factored out. Okay. And I know this is probably confusing, and I hate that I'm not there to answer questions as you're probably coming up with them. But when we do some examples, hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense. Okay, so a checklist. Checklist is always good because it kind of helps you get in the process of doing it. So determine the zeros. Is that right? Zeros? No, it doesn't have an E. Sorry, I'm not an English teacher. Sorry, Miss Ingram. Determine the zeros from the graph and use those zeros to write the equation, this exact same equation, y equals a times x minus r, and then x minus s. Remember, those are the reason why those are negative signs in there. It's kind of a little thing in your head to say, okay, I need to flip the sign of those zeros. So if if your two zeros are -6 and -10, inside of there, it's going to be x plus 6 and x plus 10. Okay, you just flip the sign. Okay, next, step 3. This is important. Pay attention. If you're not paying attention, pay attention. Hope you're paying attention though. It says to find another point on the graph and plug it in for x and y. Now, what that means is, and my tip for you is to use that vertex or that where it kind of makes that like that very bottom, that minimum or that maximum, use that point. That's usually one of the best points that you can use. Most of the time in these problems right here, it's going to be going through a good point, so you can use that. But use that for your the point on the graph to plug in for x and y. Then you're going to solve it for a, and then you're going to plug in that value of a to take it from that weird equation, y equals a times x minus r. You're going to FOIL it out, and then you're going to come up with your equation. Easy peasy, right? So easy. We'll get through this. I promise. Actually, I'm going to go back up and tell you all the answer for number 2. Number 2 was, let's see, y equals x squared plus 2x minus 8. Did you get it? Y equals, what did I say, x squared plus 2x minus 8. There we go. Okay. So, okay, pay attention again if you aren't paying attention, because these are where it kind of gets a little dicey. Okay, so very first step, determine the zeros from the graph. So we're going to look at our zeros, and it's really hard to see. Let's see, that would be -3 and -1. So I'm going to write up here, x equals -3 and x equals -1. Okay, so that was step 1. We determined our zeros. Next, we're going to use those zeros to write the equation. So we're going to take out our r and our s, and we're going to write the equation. Y equals a times x, and that is -3. So I'm going to make it +3. And then x, that is -1. So I'm going to do +1. Okay. So now what we're going to do is our next step says to find that other point on the graph. And remember, I told you to use that vertex, that either minimum or maximum. In this case, the vertex looks like it is -2, -1. Right there. You'll see that. -2, -1. Write that as an ordered pair, maybe off to the side or right here. -2, -1. Now what we're going to do is we're going to plug those numbers in for yeah, okay. Sorry, I was looking at my notes and I was reading the wrong thing. I was like, this doesn't make sense. So we're going to take those numbers and we're going to plug them in for our x. Wherever we have an x, we're going to plug in -2. And wherever we have a y, which is right here, we're going to plug in -1. So I'm going to rewrite this as -1 equals, because we're solving for a, we don't know what a is. We don't know what that leading coefficient is. A times our x is -2. So -2 plus 3. I was writing the answer instead of the number, plus 3. And then again, -2 plus 1. Okay. So we just took out our those x's and we put in what that x value actually is. So here's the easy part now. Negative 2 plus 3, that is 1. Negative 2 plus 1, that is negative 1. It's times a, and that equals negative 1. See, 1 times negative 1, that is negative 1 a. I'm going to write a over here because it always looks better with the variable on the right side. Negative 1a equals negative 1. And then we're just solving for a, so we're going to divide both sides by negative 1. Negative 1. So a equals 1. You got me? You're still there? Okay. So now I'm going to write what our zeros are. Our zeros were, x equals negative 3, x equals negative 1, and then our equation. So they don't give us enough room for all this. Let's see. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write it up here in the graph. Okay, so I'm going to write y equals, if our a is 1, 1 times x plus 3, and then x plus 1. So we're just going to factor this out. Since our leading coefficient is 1, makes life a lot easier. So we're just going to FOIL it. So x squared, x times 1 plus x, 3 times x plus 3x, 3 times 1 plus 3. So our equation, when we simplify it, I'm going to write it down here, x squared plus 4x plus 3. We did it. There we go. All right. I think I'm going to go ahead and do graph B with you. I'm going to let you all do graph C on your own. Graph B does have a leading coefficient that is not 1. So that's why I want to do this one with you. All right. So first thing, we have to determine our zeros. So our zeros, I'm going to go ahead and write them up here. X equals, looks like positive 2 and 4. X equals 2 and x equals 4. So next step says to write our equation with those zeros in it. So y equals a times x minus 2 and then x minus 4. All right. So now next step says to find a point on the graph and plug it in. So again, use that either minimum or maximum. So here it is right here. And so let's see, that is positive 3, negative 3. So let me do a different color. 3, negative 3. Sorry, we got the Reds game on. It's tied up. All right, so now I'm going to rewrite it with those values of x and y in there. So my y is negative 3, and that equals a times, I'm going to put my x value in, which is 3. And then I'm going to go ahead and write negative 3 over here so I don't have to switch colors again. So that is 3 minus 2 times negative 3. Oh, wait. Why did I write negative 3? It should be positive 3. 3 and then minus 4. Okay, you see what I did? I just plugged in. Whenever there was an x, I took out that x and I plugged in this 3. And wherever there was a y, I put in negative 3, which is just the very beginning of the equation. So now I'm just going to simplify it out. So 3 minus 2, let's use green. 3 minus 2 is 1. 3 minus 4, that is negative 1. that's right. A equals -3. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so 1 times -1, that is -1. All right, A over here equals -3. And then divide by -1, divide by -1. So A equals +3. Okay, so here is what I wanted you to see where your leading coefficient is a number greater than 1. So if we were to rewrite this equation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this equation right here, but I'm just going to put 3 in the front. So I'm going to take out that A and I'm going to write 3 times x minus 2 and then x minus 4. So if we FOIL this out, that would be x squared minus 4x minus 2x and then plus 8. Now remember, we have to multiply everything by 3 now. So our equation I'm going to write on this bottom line, 3 times x squared is 3x squared. 3 times -4x, that is -12x. And then 3, oh shoot. No, Kristen, I forgot to combine my like terms. You see what I did? -4x and -2x, that's -6x. Hopefully some of you all saw my mistake. So that would be -6x. If I combine these terms right here, I'm still on eraser. These two right here, whoops, and I erased. That's -6x. So -6x. So 3 times -6x is -18x. And then 3 times 8 is plus 24. Okay. It seems like a lot of work, but once you get into that routine and you just know, okay, I know my x and my y, that minimum or maximum, that vertex point, that's where I need to put in for my x and my y because that really helps. And then after that, you can solve for your A and put it in. See? Just so easy. Okay. I want you all to try number 6 on your own. Put me on pause, and then I'll give you the answer in a little bit. All right. Stick with me. I didn't do this one ahead of time. Usually I do problems ahead of time, but I didn't do this one ahead of time. I hope you all had a good weekend. I know you all probably watching this way past Monday, but I'm just doing this on Monday. Hope you had a good weekend. Yeah, it's kind of cold. Today it was freezing outside. Do you see how I'm stalling to do this problem? All right, so let's see what Manny's doing. Manny's crouched on the ground and launches an arrow into the air. The graph shows the height of the arrow in feet over time in seconds. This would have been fun to do with when you all were launching your rockets. This would have been fun to kind of work with your science project on. So write an equation to represent the functions shown on the graph. So very first step is to find your zeros. And oops, we get a 0 at 0. And then we have a 0 at 2. So your zeros are x equals 0 and x equals 2. Okay, so we found our zeros. Let's go ahead and write it in that equation. So y equals a times x plus 0. Or let's do minus 0, just because we need to change the sign, and 0 is always kind of positive, but minus 0, it's not really going to matter. And then x minus 2. Now let's find our vertex, or minimum or maximum. It's going to be right here at 1 and say 16. That is 1 comma 16. All right, so I'm going to take out my y and I'm going to put 16 in for y. I'm going to take out my x and I'm going to put 1 right here and right here, and then I'm going to fill everything else in. So a times 1 minus 0, and then 1 minus 2. So 16 equals, let's see, a times 1. 1 minus 0 is just 1. And then 1 minus 2 is negative 1. Okay, so this is negative 1a equals 16 divided by negative 1 divided by negative 1. A equals negative 16. So our leading coefficient is going to be negative, which matches with our graph. It's a frown, upside down, negative. So that works. So now we just have to, we're going to rewrite our equation as y equals, I hate it. There's not enough room here. Okay. So negative 16. Well, I'll just do what I can. Okay. So we've got negative 16 times x minus 0 times x minus 2. Okay, so this is, if we were to FOIL this out, x squared minus 2x. And then this 0 times x, that's just 0, so we don't need to write that. And then negative 0 times negative 2, that's just 0, so plus 0. But we have to multiply negative 16 times everything. So that is negative 16x squared minus 2x. And that is your equation right there for that function. Oh, I did something wrong. Why didn't y'all say Miss Flick minus 32x? Oh, 32x. Those of you that saw my mistake, when I multiplied out or factored out 16 times x squared, that was negative 16x squared. But negative 16 times negative 2x is positive 32x. I think I just got so excited that there wasn't a last term. I forgot to keep multiplying. All right. Okay, for 6, those of you that did number 6 and want to see if you got it right. So y equals negative 2x plus 4x. And the zeros of this one were x equals 0 and x equals 2. So this one should have been easy enough because we just did one just like it with zeros of 0 and 2. Okay, so I'm going to sign off. If any of you all need any extra help with any of these videos, just let me know. I can definitely do my best to help you out however I can. Charlie, I'm now going to eat my cookie that I got. And you guys have a great night, and miss you all terribly. I really do. Never thought I would, but I do. I miss y'all. Okay, take care.